Well, hey y'all, and welcome to the Hillbilly Chicken Ranch. I am Susan, your hostess. Today we're doing Souptember. This is Souptember 2023, hosted by Mennonite Farmhouse. And I'm so happy to be included in this collaboration. This is my second year doing the Souptember collaboration, and I really enjoyed the first one. And I wanted to bring you a really neat soup recipe, probably one that you have never heard of unless you come from Colombia. So this is a family favorite of ours, and I am going to be using oxtails. These are beef oxtails. Now I'm going to show you there's two different packages that I'm using because I did not have enough in the first package, but these are oxtails. And they are organic oxtails, this package. This is the one that we bought at the store. And you can see a definite difference in the color of the meat. Can you see that? There's a definite difference in the color of the meat. Stores are adding additives, colors and stuff to your meats. Not really the healthiest thing in the world, but I needed more oxtails for this, and I wanted to make sure I had plenty because the recipe calls for 1 to 2 pounds, and I knew this one was 1 pound, and I wanted to make sure I had plenty because my husband and I both love eating this. Oxtails are used to be a cheap cut of meat, and it was considered a delicacy to some people, and it has a lot of beef flavor in it. A really good strong beef flavor, and very good for soups and stews and so forth. So what am I making today? I'm making sancocho de cola. This is a Colombian cola sancocho, or you can call it an oxtail soup with plantains. And I have gathered all the ingredients that I need. I have got yuca, or what is similar to yuca. Yuca has a potato-like texture and a very mild flavor, and it takes on the flavors of anything that you put it in. This recipe calls for corn on the cob. Well, we don't eat corn on the cob any longer, but we do have fresh corn that I had in the freezer, and we're going to use that. It calls for fresh cilantro. So I've got my fresh cilantro here, and it calls for some scallions. And so I have some scallions here. This is going to be a garnish along with some of the cilantro. It also calls for white potatoes, which I don't have over here yet. Salt and pepper to taste, and then it calls for the salsa de aliños, and that's homemade salsa de aliños. So everything is fresh in this recipe. So I went and grabbed my potatoes. You need 6 medium-sized potatoes. White potatoes or red potatoes will work really good in this. I'm adding an onion to my recipe, and we are going to have a very delicious soup, and it is a Colombian favorite. It is a comfort food, and I think that y'all will really enjoy this. Now, if you don't like oxtails or you're afraid to use oxtails, you can use chicken, you can use stew meat, beef stew meat, you can use pork. It's really up to you as to what you want to put into your sancocho. So we're going to get this recipe going. It takes about 2.5 hours start to finish. Of course, this video will not show everything. First thing I'm doing is I'm rinsing off my meat, and I'm going to put it in my stock pot. I'm going to add some water to the stock pot here in a moment, but I want to make sure that I rinse off the meat. Get any of that extra bacteria off there if possible. And we're going to open up this other package. And I'm going to break them apart and get them into the stock pot as well. And wash my hands. Now, in place of water, you can either use chicken broth or beef broth. It's really your preference. I'm going to add some beef bouillon to this, so I'm just going to use the water for now. But it has a really nice beef flavor. You really do not have to do this step if you don't want to. So I've got 12 cups of water in my stock pot. I'm going to go ahead and get it turned on. This is going to come to a boil, and then I'm going to simmer it for 1.5 hours. Once it is through simmering, we're going to come back and we will add our vegetables to it at that point. Let me grab my beef bouillon. And I need to grab a spoon. So this is Members Mark beef base, but it was originally Tones at one point. And I'm going to put a tablespoon of this in. I may adjust it after it's cooked for a while, but we're going to start with that. And I'm just going to use my finger and get it off the spoon. Now you have to remember that anytime you use a bouillon or a broth, it's already salted. So you don't want to add any salt to it until you know for sure that you don't need that salt. I'll wash my fingers off. And while this is coming to a boil, I am going to start prepping my vegetables. Yucca is going to be the toughest one to cut. So I have pulled out a really good knife, and I do mean it's tough. So we want to get the end off so we can start working on this. The flesh inside is white, but this outer skin has got to go. And so I want to get this started while we're waiting for this pot to come up to temperature. And we like the chunks to be about 2 inches. Sometimes you'll get them in a restaurant up to 4 inches, usually 3 to 4 inches. And so I'm just going to cut around this and break it off. And hopefully it will go through. There it goes. So that's about the size that you want it to be. And we're going to get this all cut up, and it'll probably be about 5 or 6 pieces of this in the pot. And as I said, this is the toughest part of the whole process. Unless you buy it in the store. Now, I know that Kroger's used to carry it in the freezer section already prepared, and all you had to do is take it out of the package, rinse it off, and cook with it. But it's got a really white flesh inside. This is a root vegetable. And you do not want to eat this raw. And they coat it in wax to preserve it, so it makes it a little bit tougher for you to cut through it. And there's usually a fibrous core in this. After you cook it, you want to remove that fibrous core before you serve it, unless you just don't mind biting into it. Some people will half these and go ahead and remove that before cooking, but it comes out easier after it's cooked. There we go. This recipe also has plantains. I did not show you that at the beginning of this, but you'll see them here in a few minutes. I'm sure you've seen those in the store. They seem to carry those more than they carry the yucca. And this is not the yucca that you see in people's yards. This is a different plant. There we go. So I've got that part done. I'm going to pull out a little knife and just go around the edge of this. Just to get that tough outer piece off. And then once I get all of this done, I'm just going to set it in a bowl with some water until I'm ready to use it. Yucca is low on the glycemic index, folks. It's a good alternative to white potatoes. And so I'm going to go ahead and get some of these eyes off of this. This is going to be so delicious, y'all. It's worth the work. I promise you that. Real scratch cooking is using fresh, organic vegetables. And I've got a little piece here at the top. That's good. I'll be back when we get all this cut. And we'll move on and do the potatoes and the onions and the cilantro, the scallions, and the plantains. Okay, I've got the yucca cut and got it in some cold water. I'm just going to go ahead and peel these potatoes. Now, we normally don't peel the potatoes, but when I had SANCOCHO in the past, the potatoes were always peeled. And this just adds another layer of flavor to this soup. Okay, that's pretty good. I'm going to quarter these, and I'm going to get them in the water as well. So big chunks of potato, and they'll be rinsed in that water. When I get through all the potatoes, I'm going to put them in the refrigerator and let them sit. The onion, the cilantro, the scallions, and the plantains, I'll do them as we go. The plantains will be the next vegetable that I do, but I don't want to do them too soon and lose that good flavor from them. And everything is in the pot. The corn is in here, everything is in the pot, and it's looking really, really good at this point. We're going to allow this to cook, and then I will probably skim off a little bit of that fat towards the end of the cooking process. We want this to cook for a good hour. And I'm just going to set my lid on it with a slight vent in it and turn my burner up. And we're going to let that go for 1 hour. Okay, I've got 4 scallions here, and I'm just going to cut the tips off of them. And I'm going to make little cuts, not real thick. I like the whites of the scallions, so I always use them. It's totally not necessary, but I'm in the old school thought of waste not, want not. Everything that went into this dish today is fresh. The only thing that wasn't fresh was the comino, and it was the dried comino. And there is our scallions. I've got a little bitty bowl. I hope it's big enough. I pulled out a small bowl. And we will use this on top of our soup as a garnish. And these are really good to garnish omelets and stuff with too, folks. Get it all in the bowl. And we're going to get this into our refrigerator, and I'll keep it cool while we're waiting on our soup. We'll be back in a short. Y'all, I wish you could smell this. It smells so, so delicious. Everything's cooked. Those are the plantains. The potatoes. The yuca with potatoes and plantains. Lots of corn in here. Lots of cilantro. The flavor is phenomenal. Our timer is going off. This smells so good. And I'm just going to show you. That's what it looks like, y'all. That is one of the beef oxtails. And I was supposed to put my seasoning in and I forgot. So we're going to get our seasoning in. Now this is Aliños Colombiano. It is a Colombian seasoning paste. It's made fresh. Fresh ingredients. I will link that in the description box below. I have a video on it, on how to make it. And it calls for 1/2 cup. So we pulled out about a 1/2 cup here. This is bell pepper, red bell pepper. It has onion, scallions, and garlic. And some comino. It smells really good. We're just going to dump that into our pot. Now I'll come back and I'll taste this in a little bit, and if I need more I'll add to it. And I'm going to add about a teaspoon of salt, because I did taste it before and it doesn't have a lot of salt in it. So, you know, I put that beef broth in there and that's salty to begin with, but I didn't use a whole lot of that. And I'm going to use a teaspoon of my black pepper. And we're going to get this cooking a little bit longer, because you want those oxtails to be nice and tender. And it's going to be a nice flavor, I think. We may have to adjust our seasoning on it, but that's okay. I am going to get out the plantains, the potatoes, and the yuca are in the refrigerator. We're going to get our plantains peeled. Now these are plantains. They're not bananas, as you know of a banana. And I'm going to use 2 of these, and I may use 3, just depends on if I think I have enough there or not. This is another vegetable from South America that you do not want to eat raw. I'm just going to cut those stems off, and I'm going to run my knife down the spine of this. Go ahead and cut my other end off. It makes it easier to peel. And I'm going to run this under cold water. So let me see if I can get you turned a little bit. There we go. It just makes the skin come off easier. Sometimes it'll peel all in one chunk, sometimes it won't. Now these are green. You want the green ones for this. You do not want the yellow ones. The yellow ones are sweet. These are not sweet. These also have kind of a potatoey texture and flavor when they're cooked. I'm going to take my knife just to help me along a little bit. But this one is just not wanting to cooperate. These are smaller than I normally buy, but that's what they had in the store here, so that's what I had to choose from. So I may use 3 of them instead of just the 2, or I may use all 4 of them. I want to get all this skin off. And there's a little seed pouch down here at the end. I'm going to cut that off as well. I'm just running my fingers underneath the skin to kind of loosen it from it. These are really good fried as well. A lot of times when you go to a upscale Spanish restaurant, they will serve you the fried plantains to clean your palate. And they normally will serve the yellow plantains. But these have a potatoey flavor when they're fried. The green ones do. And they're very good. Alright, got those cut. I'm going to bring you over and bring you down just a tad. These we're going to cut into 1-inch pieces. Now the size depends on how you like them. I find that this is the best way for us to have them. We're going to get them into our stock pot. And I'm probably going to add the other 2 to that. Remember the corn? This is about 3 full ears of corn. I'm just going to dump that in there. Now, normally you would have whole ears of corn and you would break them in half. So, we're going to give that a little stir. And I'll show you once everything is in the pot what it looks like. And I've got my potatoes and my yuca in here. I'm just going to drain all that water off. And these are our potatoes. Get them in the stock. And I have the yucca in here. Remember cutting up the yucca? The idea is everybody gets a little bit of the yucca, a little bit of the plantains, a little bit of the corn, and a little bit of potato in this soup. And I've got to do my onion. I like having extra onion in this. If you don't want the extra onion, don't put it in there, because your Aliños Colombianos has onion in it already. And this is just a basic white onion. We did pick these up from the Amish community. And I always cut from the root end down. Slice it in half. And this one's got a little bad spot inside of it, but that's okay. We're going to take that out. We'll just chunk that part. And I'm going to do kind of a rough cut on this. And again, I'm going to take out this bad spot. We're going to get that into our stock pot. Give this a little stir. I've got our cilantro. We're going to rinse this off. And the recipe calls for about a half a cup of this. We don't need the stems, they'll go to the chickens. And if I have more than a half a cup, which I know I do, some of this will probably end up in my dehydrator. And again, I'm just rough cutting this. And I'm going to guesstimate at how much of this is going to go in. So that's about a half a cup that I just put in there. And the rest of this I'm going to put up until I'm ready to use it. You're layering the flavors. And it's really, really a tasty, tasty soup. I cannot stress it enough. Mmm. Sancocho de cola. Thank you everybody for watching. May you be fully blessed. The recipe will be in the description box below.